All right, I think we're going to start. If you would allow me to just introduce myself, I'm Judy. I'm a South African occupational therapist. I'm also the clinical team leader for the therapy team at home, Hope, the clinical coordinator. So I would like to welcome everybody to this webinar and thank you for joining us this evening. We really have a fantastic session planned for all of you. But before we dive in, I want to let you know that there's a big announcement and a special surprise for those who stay with us until the very end. And it's really something you would not want to miss. So, apart from me, we are joined and very privileged to have John Payne with us. He is the chairman and CEO of Pure Life Health Sciences Group, and he heads a team of scientific researchers focusing on genetics and its relation to metabolic diseases. The Arizona and Florida-based research group has spent 37 years researching and identifying causes and solutions to metabolic syndrome health issues based on genetics and gut flora, DNA-based nutritional adaptation, and the interaction between genes and the gut-brain axis that are critical to live long and healthy lives. Significant research has been done in the ancient areas of Africa and Australia to identify genetically compatible ingestible sources to support broad-spectrum human health, taking into consideration xenohomeosis and how it can affect mitochondrial and telomere health, geography, ethnicity, and culture. So that is a bit of the background for John. We are so privileged to have you. Please go ahead and tell us all about Technon.
Well, thank you for that. I'll narrow down the bio for me. I have spent my entire professional career researching metabolic health issues. And it was later in my career that I come to understand through some university work that I was doing that autism was metabolic in nature, not neurological. And I dedicated all the research, time and effort with my organization to specifically study autism and how we could possibly help it and do it in a way that's natural to the body without contraindications. So I'd like to explain some of the things that go into what we're doing. Technon's a very, very effective way to mitigate autistic symptoms and manage autism on an ongoing basis. We know that autism is an etiologic heterogeneous entity caused by many different disorders, occurring in the central nervous system at an early stage in life. While the etiopathogens of ASD are unknown, clinical manifestations are diverse, and many possible factors such as genetic and environmental have been implicated. As such, it has been a great challenge to identify key neurobiological mechanisms and to develop effective treatments. To date, other than Technon, the only thing that's really been utilized for autism, because no drug or neurological based medicine has been developed that is effective with autism, is ABA, which is ABA therapy. It takes a long time. It's quite expensive, requires an extensive investment of time by the family, and quite an extensive length of time, generally years, before you see effective results. Autism has traditionally been viewed as a neurological disorder. However, no single area of brain involvement has been identified typically and no consistent neuropathology has been defined. However, several metabolic defects have been associated with autistic symptoms with a rate higher than that found in the general population. Inborn errors of metabolism can probably account for less than 5% of individuals. Early diagnosis of the metabolic disorders, and this is really key for the parents. Early diagnosis of the metabolic disorders and proper therapeutic interventions significantly improve the long-term cognitive and behavioral outcomes. There are three primary metabolic impairments associated with ASD: methylation, transsulfuration, and mitochondrial function. And what we found in our research is that every single autistic person tested has a significant degradation in their mitochondrial function. And one of the things that is a part of Technon is the only known plant resource that regenerates the mitochondria. Our goal has been to have people gain a greater awareness of and a deeper understanding of the need to navigate these complex metabolic pathways in ASD. Because mitochondria are concentrated at neuronal synapses, mitochondrial dysfunction can directly affect neurological function. The treatment of metabolic impairments are diet and lifestyle. The foundation of treatment for metabolic dysfunction should begin with nutrition through natural plant-based whole foods and foods that contain natural bacterial supplementation that are anti-inflammatory and contribute to a healthy gut flora. An important lifestyle pattern that needs to be positively impacted also is sleep. Sleep is commonly disrupted in people with ASD. Yet sleep, that is the time when the body performs critical detoxification and repair and cleaning up the body's metabolic processes. Also, stress must be addressed. Stress is catabolic and depletes nutrients that are needed for proper methylation, transsulfuration, and mitochondrial function to maintain metabolic health. In addition to metabolic issues, the microbiome, or the gut-brain axis, must be addressed to effectively treat ASD. Our gut flora has been researched extensively and has been proven to have a significant impact on overall health, but specifically on our neurological and brain health. Scientists are only just now discovering the impacts of our gut health. The gut microbiome is the most important scientific discovery for human healthcare in recent decades, stated James Kinross, who's a microbiome scientist and surgeon at Imperial College London. We discovered it, or rediscovered it, in the age of genetic sequencing less than 15 years ago. Our gut microbiome weighs about 2 kilograms and is bigger than the average human brain. It is an active community of trillions of bacteria and microbes. It contains at least 150 times more genes than the human genome. And the gut's microbiome is critical for our short and our long-term health. Health issues such as depression and anxiety are clearly modified by our gut microbes. Studies suggest having a diverse population of gut microbes is directly associated with better health. Professor Jack Gilbert, an award-winning microbiome scientist and author at the University of California, San Diego, has stated, over the last 80 years and since the dawn of antibiotics, there has been a multi-generational loss of key critical microbes that appear to be important for human health. They are passed from mother to child during birth, via breast milk during nursing, and skin contact throughout the generations. But at some point in the last 3 or 4 generations, we have lost some critical ones. We're not entirely sure from a scientific standpoint if the cause was our lifestyle, our diet, cleanliness, such as using hand sanitizers extensively, or the cleanliness in our home, or the use of antibiotics. And most probably, it's all of the above that caused this. Several scientific studies found that autistic individuals harbor an altered bacterial gut microbiota. Studies have indicated that the gut microbiota appears to influence the development of emotional behaviors and brain neurotransmitter systems, further suggesting the existence of a microbiota gut-brain axis. The gut microbiota is a critical component of the gut-brain axis, highlighting its potential impact on behavior and mood at the level of the central nervous system. Scientific reviews have shown the association between ASD and gut microbiota composition. Individuals with ASD had a lower abundance of specific beneficial bacteria and a higher abundance of less beneficial bacteria. There were important differences between the microbiota of children with ASD and typically developing children. A 2021 study has demonstrated clearly that autism spectrum disorder is related to changes in the gut microbiome. These findings are published in M Systems, an open access journal of the American Society for Microbiology. Longitudinally, we were able to see that within an individual, changes in the microbiome were associated with changes in behavior. That's according to the 2021 study principal study investigator, Catherine Lupazone, who's a PhD in microbiologist at the University of Colorado. A major frontier for gut microbiome exploration is its relationship with our brain, something the new fields of nutritional psychiatry and psychobiotics are researching currently. We already know that the gut has its own nervous system, the enteric nervous system, and contains at least 100 million neurons. The short chain fatty acids produced from microbial fermentation in the gut are quite similar to some mood stabilizing prescription drugs. Some of the association that we see between healthier diets and better brain health could be because your microbes are producing psychoactive substances from your diet to help stabilize our moods. That's according to Kimberly Wilson, chartered psychologist and author. Almost all of our genes may be influenced by the food that we eat, according to the new research published in the journal Nature Microbiology. The father of modern medicine stated 2,500 years ago, "Let thy food be thy medicine and thy medicine be thy food." We are what we eat. If you heal the gut, you heal the brain. This study shows while the activity of our genes influences our metabolism, the opposite is also true, and the nutrients available to cells influence our genes and how they express. In many cases, the effects were so strong that changing a cell's metabolic profile could make some of its genes behave in a completely different manner. Previous studies have suggested that another player in gene regulation also may exist, the metabolic network. The biochemical reaction that occurs within an organism. These reactions mainly depend on the nutrients a cell has available, the sugars, the amino acids, the fatty acids, and vitamins that are absorbed from the foods that we consume. Cellular metabolism plays a more dynamic role in the cells than previously thought. There are many, many current studies that prove up what I'm going to state next. Nearly all of a cell's genes are influenced by the changes to the nutrients that they have access to, which is what we ingest. In fact, in many cases, the effects were so strong that changing a cell's metabolic profile could make some of its genes behave in a completely different manner. In light of limited success of a purely neurological approach to treating autism spectrum disorder, a new paradigm is emerging. What was once viewed as a brain disorder is now viewed as a multi-system disorder associated with predictable patterns of physiological and biochemical dysfunction. The research also shows that the gut and the brain are connected through the central nervous system and that's what establishes how they communicate. Experts say that improving the gut-brain relationship could also improve neural health. Recent neuroscience studies have found that the biological makeup of the gut flora contribute to most of the characteristic symptoms of autism. Specifically, they suggest that the pathway between gut bacteria and the central nervous system can directly affect social behaviors. Effective and successful treatment will require a multi-system approach addressing the genetic aspect, metabolic functions, and especially the mitochondrial degradation function, and the direct impact that our gut flora or microbiome has on both physical and neurological health. New research validates autism linked to the gut. Researchers have recently identified a microbial signature for autism spectrum disorder, a critical finding that offers clarity about how the gut microbiome influences autism. Accumulative evidence has revealed that gut microbiota regulates autism-like behaviors through several mechanisms, uploading the Y-aminobutyric acid receptor gene expression in the brain, restoring the excitatory and inhibitory neurotransmitter balance, and increasing the oxytocin synthesis in the hypothalamus. The linkage between gut microbes and gut-brain health is the key to helping us understand and effectively treat ASD. Many studies have highlighted a two-way connection between the gut-brain, known as the gut-brain axis. With progressing technology, we realize that the gut has a complex nervous system which interferes directly with the brain and allows bidirectional flow of information. This interaction gives us the idea that function, mood, and cognition is influenced by our gastrointestinal contents. A new player has emerged as a key regulator of the gut-brain axis, and that's the trillions of microbes within the gut and the mitochondria. Now, one of the things that is important in terms of the gut, what we now know is many, if not all, of our neurological functions and motions and behaviors are affected by the populations of bacteria in our gut and the ratios between those populations. A big reassessment study was finished in the late 2023, in November of 2023. Scientists found that a definitive association between gut bacteria and autism spectrum disorder. The gut-brain axis elucidates the bidirectional communication between gut microbiota and the brain, which affects a host of behaviors. This interaction acts through neuronal and chemical signaling pathways, including the vagus nerve that transmits sensory information from gut to brain via natural afferent connections, microbial-derived metabolic signals directly affecting brain function, and microbiota-induced neuroimmune responses in the central nervous system. Many studies have already identified the two-way connection between the gut and the brain, popularly known as the gut-brain axis. The nexus between gut microbiota and autism is the most fascinating area currently of microbiome research. With progressing technology, because there's always something new coming out every day, most autistic parents have given up. They don't want to try anything new. But realistically, something new is discovered in medicine and how to effectively treat certain diseases and disorders every day. You have to be open-minded, and for the benefits of your children and your family, look at the things that are now currently being that are available to treat autism in an effective manner. With progressing technology, finally a new player has emerged as a key regulator of the gut-brain axis, and it's the trillions of microbes in the gut, the microbiota. As the old saying goes, fix the gut, fix the brain. the newly identified solution to dysbiosis in the gut and creating host microbial homeostasis, which is balancing of the microbiota, clearing the metabolic pathways, toning the vagus nerve, and calming the inflammatory cytokines and increasing the activity of areas like the amygdala that control emotions and behavior is currently available, and it's called Technon. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John. I think I literally get goosebumps for two reasons. The one reason is the exciting new field in science that is evolving around this, but also I'm very appreciative of knowledge, and the depth of your knowledge is clearly visible. And yes, thank you so much for that. I was thinking maybe to continue with my look from a therapeutic point of view, and then we can open the floor for a few questions. So I would like to share a short PowerPoint with you. Just be with me for a moment. I'm getting better. Okie dokie. I would also like to invite you to open your cameras. I think it's possible for the audience to open your cameras. Somebody is saying they can't hear me. Karen, can you guys hear me?
Yes, Miss Judith, we can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, good. I am so excited to hear all this information from John about the gut, because in all honesty, the therapeutic approaches towards autism and my own experience of working with the vagus nerve is definitely more from a neurological perspective. So we are definitely going to look into that a little bit. And I have to say, I thought back, it was since 2011 that I've started to work with the vagus nerve. And honestly, I describe it as a love affair, because everything around the vagus nerve and what's happening there just makes so much common sense to me. And it was only really in the mid-90s that this information became more available or in the field of therapy. My colleagues will know this slide very well. I always refer to this because this is extremely important to me. Development is a very dramatic process. It's relentless and it's fast-paced. And it's important to refer to that when we work with children. Like John said, the earlier we start, the better it is for the child, because the longer we wait, the longer the child loses out on important developmental skills that will be delayed. Another thing that I always like to refer to on this slide, if we look at the central nervous system at the bottom, for therapists, occupational therapists, speech language therapists, physiotherapists, we usually work what we call from the bottom up. But the educational, the behavioral approaches is often from the top down. And those 2 points can meet in a very efficient way to really assist the child. We also know by now that neurodiversity is a journey. My strong belief is that the more tools you have in your kit, the more knowledge we have, the better we can assist the children we work with. There is also the matter of there's not really one size fits all from a therapeutic point of view. I think when you look from a metabolic point of view, it might be different. But in therapy, we are often changing, adjusting. So in that sense, it's also good to have a wide knowledge base to support the child. Another thing that I've also learned through the years is the matter of persistence. You know, we live in a very fast-paced world. We also live in a world that gives you results quickly and easily. I have in particular picked this picture of this beautiful girl that I work with because one of her big advantages was that the family is really persistent in supporting her needs. And I believe strongly that even when you look at your gut health and your lifestyle, like John was referring to, it's a different way of looking at your life as a whole, and then to continue that and not give up when the first challenge pops up. So my input tonight is really then related to the vagus nerve. And Dr. Stephen Porges, in 1995, he proposed the polyvagal theory, and he said there's really only one question in every child, for that matter, in every person's life, and that question is, am I safe? There's no other question. That is the first and the most important question, am I safe? So in this gut-brain axis, the vagus nerve, I want to refer to it as the highway. It's really the highway where the traffic between the gut information and the information in the brain is going up and down. So where the vagus nerve fits into the nervous system, so we're all very aware that we've got the brain and the spinal cord. Those are the two important, or the central nervous system. Excuse me. And then we've got what we call the peripheral nervous system, which is basically everything that grows out from the brain and the spinal cord. So the one leg of the peripheral nervous system is your autonomic nervous system, and the other part of it is the somatic nervous system. So within the somatic nervous system, that's where our voluntary muscles and our movements are at work. But the autonomic nervous system is very much like the word is saying, it is where the automatic things are happening, like our hearts are beating, as you will see in the previous slide. The automatic actions are actually the crucial organs at work. We do not instruct the heart to beat or the lungs to breathe. That happens due to the activation of the autonomic nervous system. And now the autonomic nervous system, for many, many years, we believed it only had two branches, the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. And you would have known that from, I think, the fight and flight system or the active and alert system, which is the sympathetic division, is probably the most known one. And the parasympathetic is the opposite of that, is when we rest and digest. However, Dr. Stephen Porges suggested then that the vagus nerve has two branches. So it's got a ventral branch, which is basically saying it provides all the organs at the front of the body. But then it also has a dorsal branch, which lies in the lower back area. And that's a more primitive system, and it's basically a system of it's referred to as freeze or as a state of overwhelm. I really like this picture of the autonomic nervous system, because it explains the three branches of the autonomic nervous system very clearly. If the child is at the top of the ladder, we know that the ventral vagal activation took place. So all the automatic organs can work optimally. Your digestion, your heartbeat, everything can work optimally. The body is in a calm state, and therefore the child is able to feel safe, to be socially engaged. If we go one step down the ladder, we go to the sympathetic activation, which is the fight and flight response. The child is mobilized, agitated, and frantic. And then if we go further down the ladder, we go into the dorsal vagal state, where there is a state of being numb, feeling collapsed, the world is too heavy, or the nervous system goes into a state of shutdown. So this polyvagal theory is based on three principles, that it's hierarchical in nature. So if you are in a dorsal state or in a state of overwhelm, you can't jump from there up to a state of rest and digest or feeling safe. You will move systematically up or down the ladder. The interesting thing, and for me, this is probably the most important thing here, this is, Dr. Porges refers to it as neuroception, but this is an automatic process that takes place below the level of consciousness. There's no cognitive reason here. And I always explain it like it's each of us has an internal radar system. And it's that gut feeling. We all come from cultures where the word gut feeling is often mentioned. It's there, but it's not coming from your thinking brain. And it often brings us discomfort. But that gut feeling is definitely, not often, definitely coming from this neuroception, which is an unconscious process taking place. It's also important to understand that like we said, the information between the gut and the brain is using the vagus nerve as like the highway where the traffic is going up and down. And 80% of the fibers of this highway is sensory fibers. So your brain receives 80% of information from your gut to the brain, and only 20% is coming from your motor fibers. So this highway is really very important, and the health of the highway of the vagus nerve. The other principle of the vagus nerve is also what Dr. Porges call co-regulation. And he basically is saying that the brain is a social organ. We are interdependent on one another. So when I walk into a room, I can also experience what another person, what their state of the vagus nerve is. And of course, we know that children are extremely perceptive because adults has got many cultural layers to our lives. Then so co-regulation is quite important. So if we look at how does it all work, the vagus nerve is part, or the autonomic nervous system is basically, the way I also want to look at it is what platform is your brain on? And if you can use this image of a train station platform or a metro or even a departure gate at an airport, if you go to the wrong platform, you're going to miss your destination. So we can think of the autonomic nervous system in the same way, and we want the vagus nerve to be in an optimal state when we're working with children. So therapy often works a lot with those pathways. And if you look at the red area at the top of this picture of the brain, that's where the thinking brain is. However, if the brain is not in a state of rest and digest, we are stuck in the primitive areas of the brain, and learning cannot really take place. Skills development is not taking place in the lower areas of the brain. So just to sum up then, it's a platform, and it's very important the autonomic nervous system is in the state of feeling safe. And it's an unconscious process. We cannot tell the person or tell the child, I use the word cannot, that's not true. We can try tell the child to say, for example, focus better or engage better. However, if you think of that 8% of information coming up from the body, the thinking brain is losing the battle. We continue to do the top-down processes, but if your bottom-up processes, your gut health, your vagus nerve platform, if those are not in optimal states, you will not achieve efficient progress with your child. And then lastly, again, the social nature of the brain's need to co-regulate. So I also want to just remind all of us, I think sometimes, as therapists, we become very busy and we forget. I know that's how it goes in a house full of children, and mom is working, dad's working, and we maybe focus on our child's vagus nerve or neural regulation state, but we also have to remind ourselves to look at our own state and to make sure we take care of our own autonomic state, because of the the fact of co-regulation, that we are basically in radar contact with one another. Another important thing, and I bring back my beautiful picture of the child I'm working with, is the matter of social engagement. I have mentioned now that when the more primitive areas of the brain is not operating optimally, your skills development isn't going to be reinforced and durable. Another element that Dr. Stephen Porges brought in with the polyvagal theory, and John, you referred to that as well, is the matter of socialization, social engagement. And we know with children with autism or neurodiverse children that social interaction is a major difficulty. Excuse me. The theory that Dr. Porges is saying is that when your brain is not in that optimal state of rest and digest, or the feeling of being safe, your social engagement is not going to happen. We're gonna come back to that in, oh no, I think the next slide will tell us a little bit more about that. Yes. So what does he mean? What does he mean with what is a social engagement state? When it comes to that, the difference between being socially engaged and being having social skills lies in things like facial expression, your vocal prosody, in other words, your voice goes up and down, and in your body language, where we know, for example, eye contact is an important way of communicating to another person that you want to engage with him. So when we are only looking at training social skills, we are basically teaching children a technical skill of when I meet someone new or when I enter a room, I greet people. However, if the brain is in, or the autonomic nervous system and the vagus nerve is in the state of being in rest and digest, these things will be an automatic reaction. The facial expression, the vocal prosody, the body language, and the initiation of eye contact. And this is why this picture is so important to me. This little girl, if she's in the hammock swing, in the spandex swing without the ball, she's not looking at me. But when she's in the swing and she's surrounded with the balls, she feels safe. And then I don't even have to ask her to look at me. It happens automatically. So another way of looking at it is this, because, you know, if you think about co-regulation, it's a heavy responsibility, and it should be for all of us. But it is more than that. It definitely, you can see in the right-hand corner there is the internal state of the child. If your gut health and your brain connection is out of sync, your interaction with the world is out of sync. And then the child does rely on the people around them. They also rely on the environment and also in the way that we communicate. My last little input here would also be to refer quickly to sensory processing sensitivity. Children who are neurodiverse are also we often see they have sensitivities. So this is not just something that that is a what do they call it, an urban tale. It is also based in science. Dr. Elaine Aron is the person who spearheaded this. She comes from a psychological perspective, but she did over 100 studies on over 100 different species, where she found 15 to 20% of any species, mammal species, 15 to 20% of that species is highly sensitive, and we often see that in the neurodiverse population. And again, it's not something we can change. It's like if a child is highly sensitive, for example, and you come and you say to me, I have to desensitize your child, you're basically asking me to change the color of your child's eyes. The nervous system is wired for a good reason, because this part of the population is the part that really works on preservation of the species. So for neurodiverse children, what we talk about tonight is of essence. It's important for all children, but for neurodiverse children, it's really an essential part of their development to take care of the gut-brain axis, to take care of the vagus nerve strength. And the last word I would like to say, and this is something that came with years of experience, is really the gift of different tools and teamwork. If we think that one thing only is going to fix the child or make the child better, it's usually a combination. The important thing tonight, I think, is that the importance of gut and brain axis health is coming to the forth to a far greater extent in science. And it's not only moving in the field of autism, for example, like John referred to, even conditions like anxiety, depression, mood disorders. So I hope that was of interest to some of you. I have to see how to stop sharing now, Karen. There we go. There we are. We've got a few minutes for some questions. John, I have lost visuals of you.
No, I turned it back on.
Fantastic. I know there are questions. Is there anybody who would like to raise a hand, or shall I go to the chat?
Chats. Yes, Miss Judith.
Okay. Okay, here's an interesting question. My 8.5-year-old son has difficulties with his bowel movement ever since. He will cross his legs and sweat terribly when he's poop. Last 3 months, we met a new pedia doctor and we share such experiences. Currently, my son is taking a laxative for constipation to improve. Can we take Technon together with that? John, would you like to respond to that, please?
Yes, thank you. To answer your question, absolutely. There's 3 things that happen automatically typically, I don't like to overpromise, but usually you get a noticeable improvement in your autistic children within 1 to 3 weeks. But there's 3 things that happen very quickly. I don't want to promise 1 week, but typically it'll happen within that short period of time. And that is improvements in their bowel movements, because many, many autistic children have an issue with constipation, etc. Improvements in sleep and improvements in calmness. Those 3 things we've never had a failure. Now, nothing works 100% of the time on everybody. I want to state that up front. But in every single child we've experienced, either in testing or studying or in the real world with parents who are treating their children with Technon, those 3 things happen very, very quickly in a matter of days. So to answer your question, yes.
Thank you, John. I see Marwa has her hand up. Can you unmute yourself? Is it possible, Karen?
Yes, sure.
While Marwa, would you like to unmute yourself and ask a question? I see your hand is up. Okay, while we wait, I'm going to go on to the next question. Can Technon be taken with other supplements, and how long should it be taken?
Okay, as far as taken with other supplements, yes. Depends on which supplements, obviously, but typically yes, because the more nutritional benefit, as long as it's within the correct dosage, the better for the health of the child. The one thing that's very important here is one of the absolute things that Technon is designed to do and does do is it helps correct the gut-brain axis. It helps correct the bacteria populations in the gut. It adds in the proper bacteria populations that there's not enough of. And then secondly, it helps balance the ratios between the different populations that are necessary, all right, for neurological functions. So yes, you should add it to things. How long it should be taken? We haven't developed a cure for autism yet. I wish we had and could. Here's what our experiences is over several thousand patients and 3 years. And that is, as long as you stay on Technon, the symptoms are mitigated and you can clearly manage the autistic symptoms. When you go off of Technon, similar to any other, I take a high blood pressure medication. I've had to take it since 1983. It's very difficult to go off. And what we found is that when you go off of Technon, typically within about 5 days, the symptoms will start returning. As long as you stay on it, the symptoms stay away or controlled.
Thank you, John. There's another question. What's so special about camel milk? How does it help?
Okay, I want to be clear here. This is not just regular camel milk, okay? This is a camel milk extract from a specific type of camel, and it's an extract from the colostrum, okay, of this particular type of camel. The finest nutrition in the world is a new mother's nursing milk. Everybody's tried to duplicate that kind of that quality of nutrition, including me. Nobody's been able to do it. All right. So this particular type of camel, the extract from their colostrum is virtually bioidentical to a new mother's nursing milk, and that's why this helps. It helps with the population of the bacteria in the gut, but it does some other things. It helps tone the vagus nerve, which I know, Judy, is your specialty. And it helps clear the metabolic pathways. But Technon isn't just this extract of camel milk. It has a specifically designed metabolic formula in there that helps clear the metabolic pathways through the vagus nerve to the neurons in the brain. In addition to that, because autistic children have a very disrupted gut, most of them, what it does is it helps um, reestablish the communication from the gut through the vagus nerve to the brain, which helps with things like anxiety, stress, and etc. So, and one other thing, because of this disrupted gut, Technon also includes we specially designed and patented a delivery formula because they don't absorb much because of their gut. They don't absorb much of the nutrition that they need. So we developed a way, and the reason it has to be taken as what needs to be taken as a shake, or if absolutely necessary in cold yogurt, plain yogurt. But the best way is to take it with a shaker and shake it up, because then it goes down through the saliva glands and it gets absorbed into the bloodstream before it hits the acids in the gut, which kills many of the actives in the nutrition that they need. So this delivery system increases the amount that they absorb by 300% and the speed at which they absorb it by 500%, which gets it absorbed primarily before it hits the acid in the gut, which kills most of the actives. I hope that answered the question.
I think it did, and you also answered the next question, if it can be taken by with yogurt. So you said plain yogurt.
Yes, it needs to be cold, unsweetened, plain, low-fat yogurt. And the reason unsweetened, I want autistic children tend to be very taste, texture sensitive, and they also are very, very picky about what foods they eat. And the difficulty with that is that they seem to be willing to eat yogurt, okay? If they won't take it as a drink, they seem to be willing to eat yogurt. But you want to make sure it's unsweetened. You want to limit the amount of sugar that they take, not just for general health, but since we now know that this is primarily a metabolic disorder, sugar is the biggest disruptor of our metabolic system. So try to avoid the sweets and anything that's sugar, and the simple carbs as much as possible.
Thank you, John. There's a question around vaccination, and if you will excuse me, I think we're not going to go into that. There's quite a few questions, and we're running out of time. Can we do one or two more, John?
Yes,
you? Okay.
I have time to do whatever you need.
Okay. There's a question, do they have to take Technon if they've got regular bowel movements? Does that sort of say the microbiome is healthy?
No. If they have autistic symptoms, the microbiome is not healthy. They just don't have the symptom of
constipation,
unhealthy bowel movements. Yeah.
Got you. Okay, then there's someone asking about what's your experience with Technon and Angelman syndrome. In other words, other conditions. Main challenge with sensitive sensory system, becomes anxious, angry, very she's nonverbal.
Well, we've had success with nonverbal children. It typically takes anywhere from 9 to 13 months of continuous use, but we've had outstanding success with nonverbal children. The symptoms of anxiousness and anxiety and those type of things those typically calm down very quickly. I mean, the
Okay.
response time is usually 1 to 3 weeks in terms of reaching, improved calmness.
Yes. Okay. Someone is saying the taste of the Technon. Her daughter had a strong aversion to a taste and smell. What tips do you have? And I see Amal is asking, can we add honey? Is a question we always get, or can we freeze it like in a popsicle?
Okay, you can definitely freeze it in a popsicle. Honey is good and very healthy, but the problem with honey is it has a lot of sugar in it. Now, Technon does a child no good if they don't ingest it, if they don't take it. So you have to be creative and find a way to do it, to get them to take it. We're working very hard to come out with as plain a flavor as we can, because we as adults want something that's good tasting and fresh tasting. We have to cover many of the herbs in Technon have a bitter taste, so it's a little bit difficult to cover up that bitterness. But we're working very hard to come up with as plain a tasting one as we can. At some point in time in the future, it'll probably take a period of time. We'll have more than one flavor, but the reality is we need to be able to get these children to take it, and the more neutral we can make the flavor, which is what we're working on, the more universal it will be accepted.
Perfect.
If you also serve it cold, if I can add one, and I apologize,
yes.
Judy.
No, please.
Okay, we now know from science, and this is fairly recent, that if you make the Technon in water, shake it up, put them in the refrigerator, and let it chill, it also, when they drink it, it helps tone the vagus nerve.
Yes, true. Very true. John, what I'm going to do, I'm going to tell people about our big surprise. And there are 2 or 3 more questions. I would suggest if anybody is interested to stay on longer, maybe we can do another 5 minutes. But if you will give me a moment to just thank everybody for being here. This is honestly such an exciting area of science. But before we finally wrap up, the great news is that Hope is in collaboration with Technon, and as a proof of the concept, we will be sponsoring an intake of 90 days of Technon sachets for Hope clients that are currently with us for free of charge, if they meet the criteria for inclusion. And additionally, for those of you attending the webinar today, we're offering an exclusive 10% discount. To claim your discount, you can simply drop us an email using the same address you registered for the webinar, and we'll apply the discount for a one-time use per email. So I would like to say thank you for all of you that attended. And if somebody have to run, please don't forget to write us that email. I have not said this to you, John, but I have been using Technon for the past, I think it's about 10 days now. So I invite everybody to make use of that additional email. And thank you so much, those of you who have to run. Let me just see, because I'm afraid that I just want to get a quick idea. Yeah, you did speak about the flavor, that it is a challenge and you are continuously working on it. Here's an interesting question. Can Technon be given via PEG tube and be equally efficient or effective? Because you spoke about the saliva glands, John, if you can give a bit more information.
Okay, we've only done 7 in that manner. We've had good success. The reason we wanted to go down through the saliva glands is we wanted to absorb before it hits the acid in the stomach. But we do have 7 patients over the. We introduced the product formally into the market in April of 2023, but we've been studying and testing it since 2015. So we've tested it on several thousand patients, but we've only had 7 in that, through using a PIC tube. But we did have success with it. But I haven't studied it as extensively as we have everything else. So I believe the answer to that would be yes.
Okay. That's a great answer. It makes sense. I want to go back to the Angelman syndrome. Actually, I did not read it correctly. The child doesn't have a history of sensory sensitivity. She's 11 now, and aggression is coming to the 4th now. She's nonverbal, very communicative. Not sure if Technon can help. Her behavior could be a mix of hormonal changes, puberty, exactly my thought. Yes, definitely. Seizures are not controlled. Strong-willed. So how can Technon help? So
Okay.
no, yeah, please.
I'm sorry. The seizures it most likely will help with. About 40%. I've not studied Angelman's syndrome, okay, specifically, so I can't address that because I don't have the knowledge in that area. But I'll address the symptoms, and we know from our research that there's certain metabolic things, especially coming from the gut, that cause, aggression and I believe. Well, first of all, she's got very little to lose. Okay. Second of all, I believe she has a very good chance of it helping with the seizures. I believe it'll help with the verbal, but typically a nonverbal child, unless they're very young. If we get the child very young, then the outcome is positive much sooner. But they have to be prepared depending on the age of the child. 9 to 13 months is typically what we've seen. What we found with seizures, because about 40% of all autistic children have epilepsy, we found that the seizures either stop or they are severely limited in frequency and severity. So I think she would have success in those 3 areas. Let me change that. There's a high probability that she would have success in those 3 areas. Realize this: Technon has no contraindications. You have nothing to lose. And the hormonal thing that you were mentioned before, we're doing some additional tests, to be honest with you, with Technon, because we found that in females, we've not tested in males, but in females with hormonal issues, and in addition to just hormonal issues starting from 28, we've also tested menopausal women, and Technon has a tremendous positive impact on their hormonal issues. So to translate that to this child, there is a high probability that they would have success because of that. We're testing these other areas right now because what we found is Technon, because of what it does for the gut, in the gut-brain axis. It affects so many different areas of the body,
Yes.
but
Yes.
including hormones. Okay, so
Absolutely.
I think that this mother would be well served to try it, because she's really got nothing to lose. There are really no contraindications with Technon, other than for the first few weeks, some of the children will develop an increased amount of flatulence, and that's because of the changes in the bacteria in the gut.
Thank you, John. I'm going to allow 3 more questions. How could Technon improve cognition and understanding? I think you have referred to that. If you can maybe cognition.
Cognition is one of by correcting the gut. You correct the signals, the metabolic, the signals that go through the vagus nerve and to the neurons. The neurons in the gut transmit a signal through the vagus nerve to the neurons in the brain, and it tells them, they understand what to do, raise their arm, smile, laugh, whatever. So that's how it does it.
Thank you. There's a question about how can we stimulate the vagus nerve. I'm quickly going to respond to that. There are so many ways. I think the one related to Technon is what you referred to. It works. It has a positive impact on the vagus nerve if the product is served cold, because the vagus nerve responds positively to cold. Here at Hope, for example, we also do the safe and sound protocol, but there are many breathing techniques. It's actually a whole different discussion. Can you tell us a little bit about the dosage? The person is saying she believes there's 24 sachets in a package. Is it 2 boxes or 1 box per month?
It's depending on the age of the child and the severity of the symptoms. It's 2.5 boxes per month. If you do 2 servings a day. The younger the child, many times you can get by with 1 serving a day. The older the child, and the more severe the symptoms, then you're going to want to do two servings per day. So that would be each box would be enough for 12 days. Recognize that when you talk about nutrition, because what we're doing is providing the proper type of nutrition, specific types of nutrition to benefit these children. Recognize that your body uses or evacuates most of the nutrition it takes in every 12 to 16 hours. And with a disrupted gut, an autistic child or a non-neural normal child isn't going to absorb as much as they would otherwise. So to get 2 servings a day, 1 in the morning and 1 in the early evening, works more effectively. So that comes out to 2.5 boxes a day. Sorry, 2.5 boxes a month.
A month, yes. And the last question, how long has the product been on the market?
We introduced it in April of 2023, and but we commercially produced it and tested it from 2015 on.
Sure. Yeah, so it's been a long time. We are going to stop there. I see there has been a question. The one is the effectiveness, and I see Amal did post a link in the chat. If anybody wants to go onto the link with a testimony, and there's a testimony from a mother here as well in the chat, who said with absolutely certainty that it made a huge difference. And someone also asked where they can claim that the a 10% discount. I see Karen also posted the email address. It's the same email address that you used for registering for this webinar. So info@hope amc.com. Oh, but now you see Amal has only this one more question from a mom.
Okay.
So here's your last question. What is the reason that when stopping Technon, we will go back to the starting point? Is it healing the gut and the vagus nerve connection that make it more medicine than a supplement? Because usually using supplements give a step forward for my daughter. It was glutathione, L-carnitine, and it may differ from one kit to another. Wait. When you stop the supplement, you stop gaining more, but not going to the start point. So
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Does it make sense?
Okay. The reason that the symptoms start returning after approximately 5 days, what we believe is that because the gut is so disrupted that while the Technon is present in the gut, it is balancing, it is adding the proper amount of bacteria, proper types of bacteria, and it is helping balance the ratios between the different bacteria in the gut, necessary bacteria in the gut. But the gut is still disrupted and it hasn't been healed yet. And how long that takes, we don't know. I mean, we've had patients on it now for 5 years plus. Okay. Most of the families aren't willing to take the risk of taking the child off of it and starting over again. But the ones that have, we believe that the gut hasn't been completely healed. So it goes back to its previous state, which also induces the previous symptoms when they stop taking it.
Okay. Thank you so much, John, and thank you everybody for attending. I see there are so many comments on thank you for this informative information and for your knowledge about this. So it was lovely to have all of you with us. Thank you so much, John. We appreciate your time and your knowledge. Thank you, Karen. And thank you, Ms. Amal and Hope AMC for bringing this out to the world here in the Middle Eastern corner.